Hello and welcome everyone to the Data Plus Design for Development program information and workshop session for the 2026 program. We are grateful that you could be with us today, and we're so happy to see that many of you are joining us from all over the world for today's information and workshop session. We're going to introduce ourselves in just a moment, but before we do that and we get into today's session, we want to get to know a little bit more about you. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to one of the co-leads for the Data Plus Design for Development program, that is Mr. Henry Dua. Good to see you, Henry.
I'm Henry Dua, dialing from Ghana. I'm currently in Cape Coast, but this year I'm in our class, and I'm happy to see most of you joining from different places. We have Obabia from Nigeria. He's interested in climate action, resilient architecture, and human well-being. We also have a number of people from Kenya joining me. We have some of the previous colleagues and other programs that you run, like the research mentors, for instance, Mr. Fa, who was part of the current cohorts joining me also. We have Attey from Ethiopia, who is interested in education and other related stuff. We have also other scholars from Ghana and also China, Alumni. It's a pleasure to have all of you here. I think the interest is varied across public health, education, epidemiology, and all these areas. And it's really good to have you here. You can still continue to just drop in your name, where you are dialing in from, and if possible, your LinkedIn profile link, so people can connect with you. Back to you, Peter.
Thank you so much, Henry. It's good to see you, and it's good to see all of you joining, as Mr. Henry mentioned, from different countries, as well as representing different themes within international development. And again, I want to welcome you today to the Data Plus Design for Development information and workshop session for the 2026 cohort. My name is Professor Peter Pinar. I am the Executive Director of the Leaders of Africa Institute, and it is my privilege to welcome our scholars as well as participants in our program here at the Institute from over 50 countries around the world, including many of those that you can see on the visualization on your screen. Now, what brings everyone together here at the Leaders of Africa Institute is a belief that research, data, and empirical findings can play a prominent role in solving some of the major challenges that we face. And we have many scholars that have gone before you in the Data Plus Design for Development program, and we're going to be hearing from some of them today, as well as looking at some of the work that they've done on the cutting edge. But I just want to mention four at the outset. In fact, joining us, and we'll be speaking later in today's session, we have Bijou Attey Quist from Ghana, who is a data and design scholar in last year's 2025 cohort. It's still 2025 at the end of it. She is representing the development space, doing a lot of work in development, and is presently a communications professional at the International Center for Evaluation and Development. And we're going to be taking a look at her Capstone project and hearing from her later in this session. We also have Roland Mahdi, who was a data and design scholar from 2021, who is presently the research associate at the Johns Hopkins University in the United States, the Bloomberg School for Public Health, an expert in food and nutrition and public health, and currently works on the Countdown project, of which Johns Hopkins University and other partners from across the African continent work on. He was a scholar in this program in the 2021 edition. We also have Moranti Sakina Sanusi, who is a development practitioner specifically looking at issues surrounding public health and healthcare access. She is presently at the Governance International Consult, doing work on providing governments as well as international institutions support for making decisions surrounding policy matters in her area of public health. And we also have Michael Sinkuru from Uganda, who is a technological and data specialist who works as a consultant in a variety of countries in Eastern and Southern Africa, helping them with information and data systems, as well as being able to translate that information, that data and that information for positive purposes and decision making. These are just 4 of the many scholars that have come before you in the 6 editions prior of the Data Plus Design for Development program. And as we talk about today in this session, we're going to hear from a few of our scholars, and we're going to also look at some of the work that they've been doing to be able to use data to translate it into innovations and impact for their communities, their countries, and the world. Which leads me to the theme of the Data Plus Design for Development program, which is the importance of data and information in shaping information and decision making. Now, many of you have heard of the open data movement that has been burgeoning for the last 5 to 10 years, in which we're seeking to unlock troves of data that governments, institutions, and others have cultivated over the years, and use that data that we already have and continue to cultivate more to be able to visualize it and make quality decisions on the basis of that data. Now, the need to communicate data and translate data for evidence-based decision-making, advocacy, and knowledge sharing is the important end of this process. So it's not just about getting access to data, but it's using that data and leveraging that data to be able to make decisions from it. And to be able to do that, we need to be able to grow our ability to engage in analytical storytelling. So it's both an analysis of the data and information that we're having access to, but it's also ways of telling stories regarding it in ways that are going to be actionable and that are going to lead to certain policy changes. And our scholars here, past and present, in the Data Plus Design for Development program have been at the forefront of thinking through some of these things, and in part of today's session, we're going to be reflecting on some of the possibilities for translation of data for that informed decision making that I spoke about. And so with that, we're going to introduce ourselves a bit more fully, those who are involved here at the Institute, as I am, as well as our program leads. Again, I introduce myself. I am the Executive Director of the Leaders of Africa Institute. I have a background in social science and public policy. We're doing work on democracy, elections, and the procurement of public goods. I do a lot of work with data analytics myself. My colleague, who is not with us today in today's session, but is the Associate Director of the Institute, is Professor Jililigana Adebi, who is an expert in agriculture and sustainability, and particularly looking at issues surrounding participatory development. I'm now going to pass it over to the lead for the Data Plus Design for Development program, Miss Attey, to now introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see you here, and also welcome once again to the Leaders of Africa Institute. My name is Attey. And I'm one of the co-leads for the Data Plus Design Program for Development. My research interests span across data analytics, public policy, international development, and also finance. Specifically in finance, I'm looking at financial strategy and also financial product development. So I'm so happy to see you here and also to go through this workshop and also understand the importance of data and data visualization. I'll pass it on to Henry to introduce himself once again.
Thank you, Dad. Hi, everyone. And also, Henry, my interest lies in data and business analytics, especially also looking into how you can support entrepreneurship and also social innovation, focusing much more on mentorship and its impacts on graduates and young students. At this point, I think we also allow our alumni to introduce themselves, but then we get to hear them talk more of their projects later for this one. I'll call on Bijou and Quist, Egessa, to introduce themselves now, and later we get to hear more about their Capstone project.
Hi, everyone. As has already been shared, my name is Bijou Attey Quist. I am a former Leaders of Africa scholar Institute scholar from the 2025 Data Plus Design for Development program. And I'm also a communications specialist who is committed to improving lives through multimedia storytelling. I'm currently working as a communications officer for the International Center for Evaluation and Development, which is an African-led NGO in the monitoring and evaluation space. With my background in industrial organizational psychology and fine arts, I normally bring a creative approach to development communication, right? Weaving stories that reflect the richness of diverse cultures. So my focus, which we'll see later, is on preserving and uplifting African cultures through sustainable tourism and diaspora engagement.
From Kenya, I am a candidate in organizational leader. My focus is just looking at the intersection between gender diversity, democracy, which is more of participatory kind of leadership, and inclusion. So at the end of the day, have like more women that at executive to be able to influence decisions. I am primarily just focusing on my dissertation work and looking research areas of not only for women, so for people with different disability, to see how technology can come in place to be able to just elevate these stories. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine. And we're gonna hear from Bijou and Christine a bit later in today's session when we look at some of the work they've done in the Data Plus Design for Development program. So how they're translating that data into important and significant stories. But before we get there, we're gonna turn our attention a little bit more to the structure of the program and the curriculum of the Data Plus Design for Development program. So with that, I'm gonna pass that over to Eva to begin.
Hi, so the Data Plus Design Program curriculum is in 4 phases. So we have the research and learn aspect, then we have like the create, engage, and impact. So when we talk about research and learn, when it comes to data and data visualization, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes before you see the visualization that is displayed there for you to understand what the audience is talking about. So in this class, we do that engagement. So first of all, as a scholar in the program, the first question that we are going to ask you is that what is the data or what is the social issue that you want to address by using data to visualize this data set? So you have to start with that question, and it may involve you having a question about, it may be from public health, education. So it can be on the topic of you want to look at education, enrollment at the primary level, or you want to look at public health questions like the prevalence of malaria in Ghana, Uganda, or other places in Africa or the globe. So as you have this question, the next thing you have to ask yourself is, you have to think about who your audience are. So as you think about your audience, then you don't end there. You have to think about what questions or what visualization would be really pleasing to your audience, and I'll go into that a little bit. So after you have identified all this component of the question that you have to answer and you have the data with you, so next phase is that, you know, in the research component, we have also different types of data set that you also have to understand. So we walk scholars through all this process. Then the next thing is you have to think about creating the visualization. So you don't just have the data, come out with a question you want to answer. In the creation aspect, you are thinking about what is the platform that I'm going to use? Is this platform going to be able to help me to design the kind of visualization or tell the story that I want to tell to the audience that I'm interested in? And also, you also have to think about what are the figures, because there are a lot of, when it comes to data analysis and also visualization, there are a lot of figures like chart figures that you have to employ, different graphics that you have to use to be able to present your visualization in such a way that it communicates the story that you have to tell. So as you have all this in mind and you are thinking, your audience have to be at the center of everything that you do, because at the end of the day, they are the ones that you're going to share this information to. So you have to think about, okay, now I have identified the research questions that I want to answer or the social issue that I want to present using data. Then the second thing you have to think about is that whatever I'm going to do, is it going to be engaging? So you also have to think about the narrative, that is like the storytelling aspect. What engaging you are thinking about in terms of what is the key message that I want my audience to take away from this visualization. Then the other thing you also have to think about is that, is this key message going to be impactful? That is it going to spark some kind of an action from them or a reaction from them? So we work through all this company in terms of like the research. What is the question that you want to answer? Is the data there for you to use? Then you go on to think about who the audience are, what is the messaging, creating, what is the platform, and also the figure that is going to be able to use to help me to visualize and also tell the story, and is it going to be engaging and also impactful enough? So this, as in the curriculum, we work the scholars to think critically about all this aspect of data visualization, and also not just that, but also think about the research and also the analytic aspect of it. So as you've seen, like the 4 components, we now break things down into bits. So the first thing we also do, we also have to do about like our audience analysis and also strategy, as I already spoke about. Who are your audience? Because your audience have to be the forefront of everything that you do. Your audience are the people that you're going to communicate your messaging to. So you have to identify who your audience are. So if you are talking about issues of malaria, public health related issue, are your audience policymakers? Or are your audience school administrators? If your audience are policymakers, the way you're going to present your visualization to policymakers will be different from how you present it to school administrators, especially if it has to do with like school enrollment and also school dropout. If you are presenting it to your politicians, you don't have to have a dense visualization. You have to have like selected few. You have to have a visualization that is going to spark an action, or is going to tell them that this issue is critical and you need to do something about it. Then from there, you have to also think about what is the action, what is the reaction that I want to get from them. So you have to have, if it's a politician, you have to have like a policy recommendation, like, hey, school enrollment is dropping. We need to do something. Here are 3 policy recommendation that I feel like if we do is going to help. So you need to have like an action or policy. But if it's a school administrator, you cannot give them policy recommendation. Sometimes you can give them policy recommendation, but if you think about it, if you are giving a policy recommendation to a school administrator, they cannot implement those policies. The policies have to go through processes. It has to go through like the principal, like it has to go to like the Ministry of Education for them to approve that policy before it can come into effect. So for a school administrator, if your audience if they are your audience, most of the time you have to think about an action item. So like, what are 3 action items that they can do at the interim at their space to be able to address school dropout or a low enrollment rate? So you have to think about that. That is like thinking about your audience and also crafting the narrative around your audience, because they are the most people that are really going, this work is going to impact. So after we've think about this is like the initial state of the visualization. If you go through the program, you have like we have something called canvas that we give to you for you to for it to help you to address some of this question. Then from there, you have to think about the advanced data visualization. So we go into now like using all the platforms that are there. So we in the Data Plus Design program, we go to a number of platforms because we believe that these are some of the good platforms that are out there, like Datawrapper, Tableau, Power BI, Flourish, and R. R is one of the data visualization platform that you can use, R Shining. And the reason we bring R there is that R is also one of like the popular data visualization platform, but with R, it needs a little bit more coding, especially if you're using R Shiny to do your visualization. But for the rest, Datawrapper, Tableau, and all those things, you don't actually need coding, because these are like interactive platforms that you actually have to have a good data set to be able to use those platforms. So we walk through what all these platforms have their pros and cons, but we take our time to teach you this platform for you to be able to be comfortable with. So at the Data Plus Design Program, you have the opportunity to use the platform that you're comfortable with to do your visualization. So we do that, and not just with the visualization. When we are doing the visualization, we are also thinking about the design aspect of visualization, because you have to think, one thing I tell like the scholars in this program is that when you are dressing up, you're thinking about what color combination will go with this gray shirt that I'm wearing. Will blue do? Will black do? It's the same thing with your visualization. If you are visualizing, you're thinking about which color will be able to speak to the issue that I'm talking about. Sometimes if you are talking about a critical issue, something like COVID death, and you're using a very sublime, calm color, it doesn't really do the work for you. So sometimes with COVID, you have to use something that is really telling, like red or black, that shows that this is a very critical issue and people need to pay attention to that. So we also go through like not just the visualization, the platform, but we also think about the color, the design aspect, the components of it, and also the storytelling aspect of stuff for you to be able to be comfortable in terms of doing your visualization.
Absolutely, Miss Eva. And I'll just emphasize a couple of things. Number one, R will be used in this edition of the Data Plus Design for Development program, particularly for the purposes of shaping data, because oftentimes when we get data that we're going to work with, it is in its raw form. So it needs to be shaped or changed or manipulated. And by manipulate, we mean in the positive sense of preparing it for analysis, preparing it for data visualization. And R has some powerful tools, as do Datawrapper, Tableau, Power BI, Flourish, to be able to do that, which reflects the importance of data management as part of the data visualization process. It's not just about creating figures and charts and even telling a story, but it's also preparing the data to be able to do that. And the other aspect that you mentioned, which is the issue of colors or of UX or UI or user interface or user experience. This is another part of data experiences that is quite important. And Ms. Eva talked about the issue of colors, and we may think that colors are a very simplistic or very basic concern, but actually colors and other graphical features as embedded in a data visualization are very critical to be able to communicate things without the use of words, and communicate those things in the context of broader stories. And that's another feature of the Data Plus Design for Development program, is the emphasis on data storytelling. Being able to translate what looks like a very complex data set, maybe country year, maybe community year or community day. It could be a lot of different units of analysis or observation that we might have in our central data set, but being able to translate that complex information into clear, compelling narratives that highlight the key messages and provide context and ultimately educate our audiences, as Miss Eva talked about the importance of the audience in this piece. So building on that audience strategy where we know who we're trying to reach, we now know the language and the approach that we might need to do needs to align with it when it comes to the stories that we tell. And telling a story is not just about telling you everything that is in the data, but rather focusing your audience into certain aspects of the data, right? So there are so many questions that can be answered with just one data set on just one issue. But again, it's about focusing our audience in a certain direction and elucidating that in greater depth and detail, which makes a great data story. And then finally, to apply creative data visualization elements that are going to illuminate the informed results. Many of us think about data visualization as just about charts and numbers, but it's also about imagery that we bring in. And some of the best data visualization experiences and projects, and you may have landed on some of these websites that had these features, include interactive graphical and other elements of design that don't just focus on chart after chart after chart, but take us through that story in cool and creative ways. And that's another component of the program. The final component of the program's curriculum is the translation into social impact. And this builds on what Miss Eva mentioned about the importance when it comes to having a specific call to action, right? The purpose of a data visualization is for a certain purpose. That could be to inform your audience. It also could get your audience to do something. And Miss Eva talked about the importance of policy transformation as one example of a call to action. right? Well, we focus on this program, and the co-leads, Miss Eva and Mr. Henry, focus particularly on the importance of integrating our calls to action for certain social impact purposes into the data visualization and analytics work. And when we get to the capstone projects from previous scholars in this program, which we're going to share a little bit of insights into, you're going to see that they had a very clear message that they were trying to share, and a clear way that they're trying to translate that into social innovation. And that goes to the capstone project that we're going to talk a little bit more about, because this program is built around, rather than being able to practice skills, but to be able to apply those skills in a project of the cohort's choosing, of the individual cohort members choosing. So we'll get there in just a moment. But I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Henry, who's going to talk a little bit about the schedule of the Data Plus Design for Development program. And in the meantime, we're also going to drop the links to be able to find the program page and other resources as we continue into today's session.
Yeah, thanks, Peter and Eva. And as Eva explained, we are going to explore some of the applications you see over here. But it's worth to note that the program will span from March to June, approximately 5 months in total. You are not going to be taught for the entire 5 months. What will happen is that you have the lecture sessions and tutorials. You also are going to have meetings with your assigned mentors or any of the leads of the program that you like to get in touch with. But then afterwards, you'll be given some time to work on your capstone ahead of the showcase. We are going to have a 1-week data design bootcamp as part of this year's program, and we are going intensively into Datawrapper, which Miss Eva later will take us through a bit of a tutorial for today. We're also going to look into Power BI and Tableau, which are all business intelligence tools. And in your capstone, you can choose any of these applications that suit your story or the aim for your capstone best. We're also going to look into Flourish. Flourish and Datawrapper are kind of quite easy to use in terms of the difficulties, more like clicking and adding stuff, and everything is kind of really inbuilt as compared to Tableau and Power BI. But we take you through all this, and you get a chance to make the choice of what you want to use for your final capstone. And as Peter also mentioned earlier, you'll also be delving into R, which is a good tool for data wrangling and other in-depth analysis when it comes to handling data or large quantity of data. Structure, you'll have the data design bootcamp, which will be 2 sessions, 1 weekend, and then a weekday, most likely going to be in the evening, so we can accommodate the schedule of most people. Our sessions are ideally, unless maybe change, will be happening on Sundays, that's 2 p.m. UTC. And it's best that when you join the program, you calculate your time zone so you can have the adequate planning in place to ensure that you attend the sessions. It will be live sessions like we have now. You get to ask questions, we go through tutorials, and in addition to this, you can also book sessions with your mentor. And after these sessions, we are going to have the International Data Plus Design Showcase, where scholars that have gone through the program will get a chance to showcase their capstone projects to a wide audience, including people that are interested in the data program. Also, some international organizations may be present, and it's a good place to, if you put in the work, to have your resource, your effort, be appreciated within the general public. And I'll pass it back to Peter to take us through what goes into the capstone.
Absolutely. And just building on what Mr. Henry mentioned, the core of the program takes place over these 2 months of intense learning that happens on this regular basis on Sundays and select weekdays. But then there's this period after the core of the curriculum has been finished to work on the capstone project, which is the pinnacle aspect of the program. And it's an ability and an opportunity for those who are scholars in the Data Plus Design for Development program to communicate their abilities in the areas of data visualization, data shaping, as well as data storytelling. So it begins with a theme that is proposed by each of the Data plus Design for Development scholars, where they say, this is something that I'm interested in looking at. It could be something that you're working on now for research. It could be something that you're working on at work for an initiative or a project. It could be anything that you choose. So you select it, and then you share your proposal for what your capstone project will be. After receiving feedback on that capstone proposal, it will then be confirmed with your chief mentor in the program, and then you will go to work at creating that capstone project. The capstone project can be created in any of the different softwares that are covered in the Data plus Design for Development program. And it's important to emphasize here, in this program, you learn each of those platforms. But for the capstone project, you're going to select one of those platforms to be able to do your capstone, particularly a platform that you're likely to use in your future endeavors in data visualization, data storytelling. Then, using original data or available data related to your project and your theme, you're going to craft multiple drafts of that capstone project, at least 2 at minimum, over the course of several months. So you'll create a first draft of it, you're going to turn it in, get feedback, and then you're going to make edits to that visualization, then you're going to turn it back in, and then you're going to make further edits, and sometimes there'll be even more rounds of feedback that are required for your capstone project. And in addition to that, and in the context of the capstone project, are also these peer meetings and one-on-one meetings with your mentor that help provide some feedback. And I'm sure our scholars are going to speak to their experience in that regard later in today's session. And so let's take a look at some of the capstone projects, because when we talk about these capstone project in an abstract term, we don't oftentimes have an understanding of what it looks like. So let's take a look at a few of these and hear from some of our scholars who are here. And these capstone projects are in different types of format. Some of them are in data dashboards, like we're going to see many of them here. Some of them are in the form of data-based policy papers. Some of them are in the form of data-based websites and other digital outputs. Again, your capstone project you're able to propose in the format and in the approach that you think is best for articulating your particular theme or issue that you're looking at. So let's look at one capstone project here. I'm going to pull up this capstone project so we can look at them. And this comes from Bijou at Quist. And I'm going to share I'm going to put this on her screen, and I'm going to have her, since she's here, explain a little bit more about her project. So I'm going to pull this up. You can actually view this. I'm going to drop the link in your chat so you can play around with her data visualization capstone project, because it's on the Institute's website, and this is what it looks like. It's not just a picture, but it is what we would say is an interactive dashboard. So it has features of user interface and user design that are built in that you can click and navigate around. So I want to be clear that these projects aren't just an image of a figure, but they have a lot of other interactive features that are built into them. So I don't want to talk too much about your project, Bijou. Why don't you reintroduce yourself briefly and tell us a little bit about your project and experience?
Okay, sure. Thanks, Prof. Peter. So as I shared, I am a communications specialist, and my passion is especially in the tourism sector. I really am focused on preserving and uplifting African cultures through sustainable tourism and diaspora engagement. So that was the foundation for my capstone. But quickly, before I present it, I have to say that my experience in the data and design development program was more than just a positive experience. It challenged what I thought I knew about data visualization, which was to just make the numbers look pretty, right? And it actually forced me to look at data as more than just numbers, but also stories that can create an impact. So as a storyteller who loves math, this program allowed me to basically merge my left brain and my right brain, the analytical and the creative, right? And it has also improved the quality of my work and the way that I look at data moving forward. So let's briefly talk about the capstone. If you think about colorful fabrics like kente, which everybody knows, if you imagine a door of no return, which has such a grievous history behind it, and you picture a strong diasporan community, what do they all have in common? So they are all vibrant pieces of Ghana's tourism story, right? They represent her history, her growth, and her future. So the goal of my capstone was to understand how Ghana's tourism sector, highlighting all of these, is growing and how it can be made more sustainable, inclusive, and locally beneficial. So I used Tableau to create this dashboard, and I worked with national tourism data that was publicly available from 1994 to 2024. And I focused on trends in tourist arrivals, economic contributions, and employment to create 3 dashboards. The first one you see, which was an overview, presents a snapshot of Ghana's tourism growth, including the arrival. So how many people arrived in the country on a year-to-year basis? Which countries provided trends of arrival, right? Which countries provided the most arrivals in terms of the percentages? And I think if you notice on the dashboard, you can see that the number of tourists increased, especially from China, Nigeria, the US, and you can play around more with the dashboard to check out which countries contributed the most visitors on a year-to-year basis. I think we can go to the second dashboard just for the sake of time. I want to quickly run through it. The second dashboard that I looked at examined the economic growth, the impact, and the opportunities, right? So it looked at things like the number of jobs that were created in a specific year, as well as the amount of money in terms of US dollars that tourists spent and how much that contributed to Ghana's GDP. And as you can see, again, there's a positive trend, right, which is happening. But it also brought up questions such as, okay, so what kinds of jobs are being created and who is being hired, as well as who's benefiting from the investments? Are they local businesses or are they foreign investors? And what needs to change in order to make sure that both sides are being valued and respected? And then the final dashboard, which is, we'll go to the menu. So the final dashboard now focused on the people themselves, because you can't have tourism without tourists, right? So if you go down to the second one, the one with the plane tickets, just above the economy.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Okay, so I looked at the visitor demographics and their behaviors. So my question was, who's visiting Ghana? Why are they coming in? What reasons? Is it business? Is it conferences? Is it health? Is it even personal or family? And what specific sites did they visit within Ghana? Were those sites government run or were they community run? The reason I looked at these especially is because sometimes there are certain areas of Ghana which might get higher concentrations of visitors. Are they contributing to the economy of the local community? You know, is it government run or is it community run, and how does that benefit them? So overall, my dashboard data, right, tells an encouraging story. So obviously, tourism in Ghana is growing steadily and showing resilience despite certain issues, including debt, including COVID. But it also reminds us that growth alone isn't enough. So we need to consider sustainability, inclusion, and local participation. So in short, this dashboard wasn't just about the numbers. It was about the insights and the stories that Ghana's tourism data is telling us. And it helps us to see where the sector has been, where it's headed, and how we can shape it responsibly together. So.
Thank you so much, Bijou. And for those of us that are interested in exploring these themes through Bijou's data visualization, highly impactful visualization, we've shared the link to that, because the showcase, at the end of the showcase, select winners of the awards at the showcase and others who presented their work go on the Institute's website so people can access them, people can engage with them. So I invite you to take a look at that. And as Bijou talked about in her conversation about her capstone project, project, it's not just about the numbers, but it's about the questions that the numbers make us think about, as well as the questions that we had before we even saw the data itself. And we're oftentimes intrigued more than we would otherwise be when we actually see the data in visual form, because it raises more questions and allows us to investigate more things. And I think that's one of the beauties of a data visualization and a story well told using data. Thank you so much, Bijou, for sharing. Let's talk about a couple more Capstone projects along the way. From the 2024 cohort of the Data Plus Design for Development program, Egessa Miwe from Zambia created a dashboard that looked at issues surrounding food security in the face of climate change. So he was looking at issues surrounding differences in climate over the years and how those differences in climate have led to different yields when it came to agricultural outputs. And so she was able to graph that on both an international scale, as you can see part of her visualization there, and then she drilled down to the local level and looking at Zambia in particular and how things have changed. And what you can see on the slide is just one segment, just like Bijou's, just one aspect of the interactive dashboard that she created. We also have the Capstone project from Michael Sinkuru, who is part of the 2022 version of the Data Plus Design for Development program. And in his capstone, he was looking at public procurement in Uganda. As people know, in the process of public procurement, there's often this issue surrounding it, which is corruption. You know, who gets the state contracts when procurement is done? So he was looking at the aspects of bid and no bid contracts in his home country of Uganda and looking at who's getting those bids. Are they local actors? And if they're local actors, if so, who are they? And if they're international firms, who are those international firms and what can that tell us? And one of the interesting things that he found was that when there was open bidding processes, generally speaking, it was international firms that received the tender, whereas when they were more localized or closed bid process, it was a more local firm that got the process, which highlights the possibilities for ways in which trading of favors can take place in the context of public procurement. So again, it was a project on public procurement, but there was this clear social and, in this case, economic interest that was involved in this project. We also had the project from Christine Egessa, who joins us today as well, who's going to talk about her project. And you can see this project, again, we're going to pull up her Capstone project and be able to explore it just as we did Bijou's. So let me invite Christine to unmute yourself. We can see you there. And tell us a little bit about your experience in the Data Plus Design for Development program. And also, of course, tell us a little bit about your Capstone project.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Peter, again. My experience was simply fantastic. That's what I can say for sure. Unlike Bijou, who has a mathematical or analytical background, I'm more of a human or social science kind of person. But I also found myself really having to engage with the data a lot in order for me to be able to make sense and not present like the wrong kind of data in terms of figures. So we spent a lot of time with my mentor, Henry. Thank you very much. Looking at everything, and at some point, I think I had done a dashboard, and he was like, okay, wait a minute, when you add this and this, it doesn't make sense. It's going to confuse people. And so I had to like go back, relook at the data, of course, with a lot of help from him. And I was able to come up with a project. So if you feel like maybe you don't have that maybe analytical or background maybe in maths, or you're not really good with the numbers, please join the session, or just join the program. You'll be able to gain a lot because the mentors are really helpful. They sit with you, understand what are you really trying to bring out, and then now from there it helps you to just bring out your creativeness. So I also have a background in fintech. so worked there for about 15 years or so. And so this really like drove my interest in terms of what I did for my capstone. Because as we all know, fintech came in and it was such a boom, especially in Africa and in Kenya, particularly because women were now included into financial decisions. Unlike before, where they would have to like go and get collateral in order to get loans or whatever from the banks, with fintech, this changed. And so as I was thinking about this capstone, I was also thinking about how I want women to be elevated in these spaces so that they're also sitting at the top of the executive positions, so that they can make decisions around what fintech products go into the market. And so that is what I built my capstone around. So again, my mentor helped me to get the data from Africa Big Deal. So once I got the data, the first thing I thought is, how do I sort of magnify where women sit? And so the first thing I did is just built a dashboard just showing where funding is going for the African startups. And then now after that, narrowed down to see where are women situated. And that is what I came up with, like in the main dashboard. So just critically looking at it and seeing in terms of men and women, when it came to growth of the fintech, how are they performing? When it came to diversity in terms of the roles, like CEO roles, founder roles, where are women sitting? And then in terms of the segment, which I had to like just do a bit of research to see like where most of these fintechs were sitting, where are women and which spaces are they mostly found in. And so from that, then we were able to just relook at the color scheme, because again, color is very important. I think initially my dashboard had too many colors and we had to just narrow it down in a way that the color would also be able to just communicate the message that I was trying to communicate, which is we still have very few women represented in gender, at the top positions. And so the call to action was mainly just to bring these stories out there so that people can know that even despite women and men being at almost the same level, at parity in terms of education and all that, we are still seeing that women are very lowly represented in the gender executive roles. And there's no enough data to bring this out. And so at the end of the day is, how can we make these stories known? How can maybe more funders or investors look at this data critically and see whether they can be able to like maybe refocus where they're putting their investments in. If maybe the rules are too strict, maybe they can be able to just change it and specifically target women founders, so that we can have more funding given to women fintechs, and then we can have products and services that are generally designed to be able to just meet women needs.
Absolutely. Wonderful. And as Christine mentioned, and I think one of the numbers there is that number that's critical on that top right hand, which is like the 90-10 metric, right? In terms of the CEOs, in terms of leadership, right? And one of us asked in the chat as they were listening to you speak, Christine, about the data that was used. As you mentioned, this data comes from a massive data set about investments in the venture capital and fintech space called the Africa the Big Deal data set. And in the program, you're able to use data sets that you find that are available. You can use data sets that you cultivated as part of your research. You can use data sets that are shared as part of journal articles that you did not publish. The purpose isn't so much in this program on the collection of that data. The research methods program is another program at the Institute that's really focused on the collection of data, the cultivation of evidence and data. This program is really focused on what we actually do with that data to tell that story, as Christine has taken us through in this really powerful example that she's shared. Now, as we continue into our session, we're going to get into a little bit of a workshop. But before we get into that workshop, I also want to point out Christine's digital notebook as part of the program. Each scholar has a digital notebook where they are sharing their work throughout the program to get feedback and to share their visualizations with their peer cohort scholars in the program. And you can see this is from Christine's data and design notebook. So you see her Datawrapper project. We're going to look a little bit at Datawrapper today in the workshop segment of today's session, but we also see her Tableau project, her first stab at Tableau, so at the very early parts of the program. And then we see the Power BI project using Power BI, and of course now we see her Capstone project. So the Capstone project is the focus of the program, but throughout the program you're also doing assignments in the other platforms so that you have experience to be able to translate your skills that you apply in your Capstone to all of these data visualization and data tool platforms as well. So I wanted to point that out as well. And the last two Capstone projects I'll talk about, this comes from Marie Allegret, whose project was looking at the effects of financial disparities of women in elections in France. And so we do have cohorts that have folks that are joining the program from outside of the African continent as well. And Marie was one who has over 20 years of experience in international development in Africa as well as elsewhere in the global south. But she looked at a project close to home, and I'll pull up her project now to see this, because this uses maps quite effectively in being able to tell the story of this question about women's inclusion and the role of finance for it. So this is the title slide to her project right here. This is what we call a storybook. We've seen data visualizations that were dashboards, but in the case of Marie, she did what we call a storybook format. So you click through it, you go in chronological order, and then you're able to take a look at this and notice the interactive features. It's not just a photo, just like Christine's and Bijou's is not just a photo, but rather something where we can interact with it with tooltips. We also have drop-down menus to be able to explore it further. And her project continues in several slides here. So you can see that there. This is Marie's data notebook as well. So these were her Datawrapper projects and Power BI projects. And the last Capstone project I'll mention to show the breadth and depth of these projects comes from Sakina's project looking at fostering accountability for fuel subsidy in Nigeria. And as opposed to a data dashboard or a data storybook version that you just saw, hers was an actual policy paper. It was a written policy brief that integrated the use of Datawrapper and Datawrapper figures into a broader document of several pages, which is also included on the Institute's website that you can take a look at, that explores the issue of whether the end of the fuel subsidy in Nigeria was being, the funds that were accrued by ending the fuel subsidy were actually being distributed as promised to the different regions of the country to improve health and well-being. That was the deal the government made. We're going to remove these fuel subsidies, but we're going to use that money to invest in these other areas, including health. And so the question that Sakina explores as part of her policy brief is simply, was that the case, or is that the case? And she has some really interesting answers to that question. So the Capstone project, all of these projects, they have data visualization at their heart, but they approach data visualization using a lot of different types of data sets and data information. But they also approach it from different mediums in which we might display that data and tell the story that we're trying to communicate. And that's the beautiful aspect of this program, is the diversity of the projects. And it's always really wonderful to see the presentations and the showcase when they're sharing this wonderful work. And we've heard from Christine and Bijou today, just giving us a glimpse of what that feels like and what that looks like. But now I'm going to turn it over to Miss Eva, because as you know, today was the title of today's session was an information session for the Data Plus Design for Development program for the applications. And we're going to talk about the applications in just a moment. But before we do that, we're going to do the workshop mini workshop component of today's session, so you get a little bit of a feel for how we might go about visualizing data and perhaps get a start if you're new to data visualization yourself. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eva. In the meantime, I'm going to share the links to the program page, and I'm also going to share the link to the data set that Miss Eva is going to use. So over to you, Miss Eva.
Yeah, that has been really insightful. I'm always happy when I hear like the capstone of some of the scholars, and you can see Bijou and Christine in terms of giving us very good data into their research. Tourism, like, I'm from Ghana. I have not been interested in local tourism until the year of return became a buzz, that I started like becoming really more interested in it. So I like the work that Bijou is doing in terms of looking at the data. Where are these people coming from? How is local engagement? What do we think about sustainability? Because that is very critical, because right now there's a lot of buzz, but we have to sustain the tourism industry, because tourism is like bringing a huge capital and also economic development to our various countries. And also Christian also share about like women in fintechs, which is also a very critical thing that we have to think about when it comes to like getting the funds, the resources. Where is venture funds going? Is it going to women? What kind of industry? So like, if you see the data that is there, there's so many data that is out there, but the question is, how do you analyze some of this data, and what are the right tools or the platform that you'll be able to use to analyze this data? And as you could see here in the scholars, they walk you through an engaging storytelling. It's engaging. I will listen to Christine and Bijou, like if they have a podcast, I'll listen to them, because these are like very great storyteller, not just telling a story, but using figures to tell you that this is what is happening. This is what the numbers are saying. They're using numbers to defend their case. So data is, you can use data. Data is a very defensible tool that you can use for your visualization. So one of the platforms we want to explore, that we always lead with data plus design, is Datawrapper. The reason is, one, Datawrapper is really easy to use. You don't really need any coding. You don't even need to have a background in Datawrapper, but what you need to do is have a very good concept of what data visualization is, and also the tools that you want to use. So no hard coding, no installation. This is live on the website that you create an account and start creating your visualization. But before you create your visualization, you have to have the data ready. As Peter said, in this program, we are going to use this time around R to do some of the data wrangling aspect of the data, like cleaning the data, making sure the data is in the best structure to be able to use. And Datawrapper is actually widely used. If we go into Datawrapper and you see some of the data publications from like Financial Times, if you read the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal, some of the simplified data visualization that they use, some of these organizations actually use Datawrapper. And if you are someone that visit the International Labour Organization website a lot, you could see that most of their visualization is actually done in Datawrapper, and they have it at the end of every visualization that this is made with Datawrapper. So it's a very unique tool and a unique platform, and also it's so easy to use. So we are going to go through a demonstration today for you to understand what Datawrapper is. So first of all, I'm going to go onto the website. So when you come here, Google, all you need to do is to type Datawrapper. So when you type it, this is what it's going to be like. So this is, you just type Datawrapper and it's going to bring you onto this page. Take your time, click on it, and it's going to open for you. So this is Datawrapper. You could see it's actually have a very unique website where it walks you through some of the things, and actually they keep improving this website so much, which is good. So now, like, a new thing they added is like Power BI. You can connect your Power BI to Datawrapper, and as you do the visualization in Datawrapper, you can export it into a PowerPoint, and also Canva. They've embedded Canva in like different platforms here. So as you can see, there are a lot of visualizations that you can create from Datawrapper, you should click on like the features. It tells you some of the features that they have. Map chart here. When you get time, you should look into it. You should look into their platform, their blog. There are a lot of blog posts in terms of talking you through like data, how to do data visualization and things like that. These are very unique blog posts that you should read to understand what is going on. And also Riva. Riva is visualization that has been done by other people for you to get ideas and also insight into what people are doing, and also using Datawrapper for. So for us today, we are just going to go in, and you can begin by create your create a chart. First of all, you can start with creating a chart here, or you can go in to sign up. Signing up is really important because it helps you to save your work so that you can always come back to it to edit and work in it when you're done. So as you can see, this is like the platform of Datawrapper, and there is a lot of ways to upload the data set into Datawrapper. You can upload it by doing cut and paste. You can do Excel, connect it to Excel directly. You can also connect it to Google Sheet and also link it to an external data source, whatever you want it to be. And you can see the various steps that you go through as you work in Datawrapper. But before we start displaying the visualization in Datawrapper, I want to walk you through like the data set that I'm going to use. So in recent years, Nigeria has been in the news a lot. So because of that, I was prompted to look at Nigeria's GDP. What is Nigerian GDP growth rate looks like? And I was actually interested in looking at it from the time of its inception. That is like its independence from the 1960s to 2024, because that is like the year that we have the data. So Peter will share the data set. I think the data set has been shared with you, so you can download it and follow along with me. So as you could see the data set, this is the data set in its clean stage. So in the data sheet, the cell sheet that you could see, we have the data from the year 1960, but the 1960 is blank because that was the year that Nigeria get independent, so there is not much GDP growth data that was reported. But after that, you could see from the 1961 onward, you could see this. As you take a glance at this, you could see that there has been a lot of fluctuation in terms of like the GDP growth rate. So this is a very unique data, but what is the story that you want to tell, right, from this visualization? In this table form is so hard. Like one of the important reasons you should visualize is that when I have this visualization in the table form, you have to be scrolling down, up and right to be able to really see the data. It's not even showing you like the trend, what is happening here. You don't see actually the volatility that is happening with the growth rate of Nigeria. So this is the clean form, but this data was sourced from the World Bank. And if you download the data directly from the World Bank, this is how it comes in the data form. So this is like the first of all, this is more like the metadata. So this is like the from World Bank. It will give you the data in terms of giving you the description of the data, the countries, and this is like the metadata indicators. And here, this is the raw data from the World Bank. So you could see like that is why data wrangling is really important. I'm really interested in it. Just Nigeria. I type Nigeria in the World Bank and it gives me GDP growth rate of all countries. So what I need to do is that I need to clean this data set and focus on the ones that I'm interested in. So these are some of the things we walk you through in terms of like data wrangling. Sometimes you get a data from an open source, is in its raw state and it's not really clean enough. So you have to clean it. So we go through this in terms of how to clean the data, how to make the data really look good. So what I did was to extract the Nigerian data, and when I extracted it, as you could see, the country indicators, the raw data here, as you can see, they have all these countries. So I have to look for Nigeria and extract it. So when I extracted it, this is how it looks like, as you can see in the form that it is. So when I did that, I transported it to have it in this way. So this is more like an easy way to do data wrangling, right? So from here, what I'm interested in is that, as you could see, this is the data that we have here. So I'm going to, in Datawrapper, I show you Datawrapper, it has very ways of importing the data into Datawrapper. What I am interested in is doing cut and paste. So I'm going to copy this this data visualization. So if you use in Excel, you do Control Shift, then you press the down arrow, then it highlights everything that you copy. Then as you copy it, you go into your Datawrapper and you just copy and paste it, right? So if you paste, this is how it's going to look like in Datawrapper for you. But you have to make sure that your data is really clean before you export it into Datawrapper, because Datawrapper doesn't give you the opportunity to clean the data into the form that you want it in. So you have to always make sure that your data is good. Then you tend to proceed. So in proceed, it's going to turn your data into a table form for you, and it's going to tell you, hey, make sure the data looks right. They even have it here. So if it's in the as you can see, make sure your data looks right. If it's in the table, numbers will look blue. If it's in date, is green, as you can see here with a year. If it's red means there's a problem with your data that needs to be fixed. So that needs to be fixed. So as you can see, the data looks good. So from there we go back to proceed. Then the default aspect of Datawrapper is going to turn it into a line graph for us. And actually, that is what I'm interested in. I'm interested in a line graph to be able to look at a trend, really critical in terms of like some of the negative figures and negative GDP growth rate. So in Datawrapper has like, look at all the charts that you can create here with Datawrapper. Very unique. And I can click on any of them. Like if I click on stack chart, it will change my data into stack chart, but that is actually not the right visualization that I want to see.
Yeah, and one comment was shared by Isaac. He was noticing there were negative numbers. But keep in mind, sometimes economies grow. Most of the times they do, and we hope that they do. But in times of conflict or other periods of instability, sometimes the economy shrinks. So we're going to see that in a moment when we look at the visualization. Good question.
Yeah. So as you can see, stack chart, you have to think about like what, as I said, what chart or figures would be good for visualizing your data. Not every chart will be good for it. So with stack chart, it doesn't give me anything from this. I don't understand this data set. If I do column chart, it does multiple columns. You can do like bar charts, which is good, but I am really interested in trends. So line graph is actually the best way to go. We'll go more into it. So my visualization looks good. So the next thing that I want to do is, like, you can do anything. Like there are so many charts that you can use with Datawrapper. The next thing I want to do is I want to go to, from chart, you go to refine. Refines allow you to clean up the data, your visualization, make it look good, give it the heading and everything. So here you can see there is the horizontal axis, which is the year. You can change it if whatever, if it's not giving you. You can also do the custom range in terms of if you want it to start from 1960 something, you can use the custom range here. The tick, just play with it. Also the format here, you can change the format that you want. Then here you can see that, do you want the grid lines? If you don't want the grid lines, you can turn it off, so there's no grid lines on the horizontal axis. But if you want it, you could have like the grid lines that you want, but we don't want it, so we want the grid lines off. In addition to that, is the same thing, the vertical axis. You can do the custom take. You can change it. The figures here is percentage, so let's make sure that it's in percent. So what we need to do is that it's in percent in 1 decimal place, so you choose 0.0%. So I want to put it in percent, but let me just take the decimal away so that it's a little bit cleaner. So it's percent. Then as you could see here, there's grid lines. I don't really like the grid lines, so I will turn it off. And also there is label. The default is that it tells you that this is GDP, growth rate percent. I don't want the label, so you go here and just turn the label off. The label is the lines, as you can see. of the vertical axis. I don't want it. I want it inside. Okay, as you can see, it's inside, or it can be automatic where it's outside. Now there is all this custom. As you can see, there's all this custom, the lines. You can change the custom colors. You can have customized colors. Here, if you want, you can change the colors to whatever you want. Here, and in addition to that, this is more linear. You can change into whatever curve that you want. Here, then the other thing is that you can see the label. There's a label next to the line. You can say you don't need the label, so that the label is gone. Here, then let me change it to more green, like the Nigerian flag. And here you can have like show value labels. You can show the value labels as you want here, from the beginning and the end. So you can say first and last if you want. You can see that it started here, or you can just say per line. So every line should have a label, but I don't want any labels to be there, so I can just turn it off. Here you can have the symbol. You can have like a circle. You can see like there's a circle at the end, beginning here, and at the end here. You can do circle at every point. I mean, it depends on what you're interested in. Or you can do just first and last. So let's just do it. You can do area chart and everything. So this is more fixed. You can do, just find time and play around with it. But the most important thing is there is like the heading and the annotation. This is where I want you to pay attention to, because this is where it's a visualization that you've created. You can leave it this way. You can just say Nigerian GDP growth rate here. You can just say here, put in your title, Nigerian GDP growth rate. Then you can put in the year 1961 or 60 to 2024. You can do it like this, blank. You just are showing a simple chart visualization. This is acceptable, right? Depends if you're writing a policy paper. You can have it this way and put it in the policy paper. But on the other hand, if I'm just want this visualization to be standalone visualization and on a website, I want my audience to know more about it. I don't want them to just look at this and just say, okay, it's volatile, it's trending. Like, I could see the trend, but what is the key message here? So here I thought about it. It's like, what is the key message that I want my audience to take away when they see my the GDP growth rate? And you could see that from the data, it has been very volatile, and there, as someone said, it was negative figures in it. A lot of things happened over the years from 1960 when independence till now. There was Biafra war. There were a lot of economic related issues. There were also the petrol bomb, like the fuel like boom that happened. So as I was going through the visualization, I want my audience to take something away from it. So this is like a story telling aspect that I created in terms of Nigerian GDP trend. So what I did was to say, okay, this is the overview. This is the year. This is the average GDP growth rate over the years. And also I look at the standard deviation. I could see the first phase from 1960 to 1969. It was the early independence. There was a civil war, the Biafra war, right? Then as you go, the second phase, 1970 onward, there was the economic boom, like oil. Nigerian discovered oil. Then as you go, Nigeria went into crisis. Then they implemented the structure adjustment. These have implications to your GDP growth rate. Then you come to the 1990 2004. That was the area of like democratic transition. It was really more stable and also more transformative, and there was a lot of growth that was happening. Then you come to 2015 to 2024. 2015 to 24, there were a lot of issues that were going on. There was Boko Haram insecurity, then COVID happened, and a whole lot of issues. So you can tell a lot of story based on this, and you can see that all these things have implication on the economy. So what I want my audience to take away is that I have a story like Nigerian GDP growth rate, 6 decades of volatility. So I go here, then I change my topic to that, like GDP growth rate, 6 years of volatility. Then I want to bring in like a story that I just want my audience to understand, like, what am I really presenting. So what I will do is that I come back here, then I put in like a description. So Nigeria, this is a description, right, that I have here. So when they see this, I'm telling a story. This is all the things that I show you in terms of walking you through the story. Then when I come here, I can do annotation. Like, annotation here allows you to really write things against some of the figures. So I can say 1960 onward, I can write independence, like fresh country, something like it's a new country, right? It wasn't new, but they gained independence of Nigeria. Someday I was going to write Ghana actually. Then I can do annotation. Then I can have an arrow. The annotation, you should play with it here. We can do here. So you can go here and just do a circle here. Then I drag it to where I want it to point to. So 1960, you could see independence of Nigeria. Like, you are telling the story, so I can walk you through. Then I go into, I have another annotation here that I do 1970. You could see, look at the 1970. Nigerian GDP growth rate was 25% because of oil. So you could see oil boom, right? So you can walk people through a story, and you can say a lot of things that you can see here. In the early 2016, 2017, 2020, that was COVID. So you can also have an annotation of COVID crisis. So people are not just looking at it, they are just looking at like very good visualization. So from there, if this is what you want to do, then you just go ahead and publish your work. So Datawrapper is asking me create an email. So if you create an email, allow you to publish your work. Then from there, you are able to print your work and export it to wherever you want it to go. So this is just a few demonstration of some of the things we do when we are talking on data visualization. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Miss Eva. There were some questions in the chat that I just want to mention here before we talk about the application process. Some of you asked, how do we know what is the right type of visualization to choose? Well, that's a very long question and a very important question. And it's something that in the context of the Data Plus Design for Development program, we talk about, because all different types of data and stories are going to use different types of approaches when it comes to the chart type that we're going to use. And as you could see in Datawrapper, there are many different chart types. In fact, there are combinations of charts that can be included in one visualization. A lot of you also asked the issue about coding within Datawrapper. Datawrapper generally doesn't involve a lot of coding in it, and that's why it's a great platform to begin to learn how to do data visualization, because it is more templated, it is more focused. You can see how it has a certain aesthetic to it, right? That allows you to not make a lot of design mistakes. However, when you get into Tableau or Power BI, where you have a lot more flexibility in terms of the graphical features, in terms of what things look like, and in addition to that, the ability to do calculations, that's when some of the mistakes are made, and that's when we have to really focus in on those particular elements, right? What are the calculations that are being done? Are they correct? And then when it comes to the actual design elements, how do we piece things together to make things look pleasing, to have that great user interface and user design? And again, these are all the themes and the important aspects of the broader Data Plus Design for Development program, and the focus in of those sessions that that continue over a number of months of the program. But with that, in our last 15 minutes together, we do want to make sure that we're answering your questions. So feel free to share your questions about the program, where we say a few more things about the program. In addition to that, we reflect on the importance of the application process, because I know many of you are here not only to learn about data visualization, but to also understand how to apply to be part of the Data Plus Design for Development's 2026 cohort. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Henry, who's going to talk about a few things related to the benefits of the program above and beyond what we've already mentioned. And then we're going to talk about the application process. And I can see some of you have created some data wrappers, have stuck them in the Zoom chat. It's lovely to see we're beginning. And I'm sure when you look online, when you're on a blog post in other professional websites like the World Bank, who does use Datawrapper, you're now going to recognize the use of Datawrapper in a lot more spaces than you actually knew before today. So that's wonderful to see. So with that, Mr. Henry, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So as Bijou and Christine mentioned, I personally had the opportunity to work with them, and mentorship is a key part of the program. You are guided, not left alone to navigate your own way. In every step out of the process, you will receive guidance. We have scheduled times that you can book sessions in advance. And in addition to that, when times are not favorable for you, you can always reach out to your mentor and or any of the co-leads for the program, and you can get to have a meeting. Also, feedback is really key. There are multiple iterations. You don't need to, be worried. Like they all shared earlier on, you go over your project multiple times until you are confident that this is the best you want to present for the showcase. In addition to that, the key benefits of this program include, as core parts, improving your competence in data visualization and analysis, with a major emphasis on storytelling and driving impact with the data that you have. It's one thing to have the data, it's another to polish it up, visualize it, and communicate clearly what story or what is the call to action you want people to have, and you are going to learn all this. There's also an international community and a network that you are going to be part of as when you get selected to be part of the fellows. And it's competitive, but I mean, when you finally get into it, you're really going to have a network of people you can reach out to. Part of the benefit, which as a former scholar, an alumni, I've benefited from, is receiving recommendation letters. Maybe if you want to apply for a school, whatever it may be the requirement, Peter and the directors will look at your work and provide a good recommendation to support what your ambitions may be. And I've already touched on the personal mentorship, and there are a ton of opportunities that you can access or that will come to your doorstep as part of the program. And now I started as a student, became an alumni, and now I'm a co-leader of this program. Others have also benefited in many ways and also getting connections within the network itself. In addition to what I've mentioned earlier, you also get the opportunity to attend events, which some may be exclusive, but as part of the community, you'll get to attend events and also get to present when something is within your line that we believe you'll be the best person to talk about as a scholar or as an alumni. You have the chance to do so. And all this bring out exposure to your work, what you do, and what you stand for as a person. Now, as an institution, we stand by ethics and values. And, we really want our scholars, alumni, and everybody that is part of the Leaders of Africa Institute to abide by this pledge, which I'm going to read it loud. And, when you get onto the program, you will sign and, testify that you abide by this pledge we have here. And I read it. I commit myself to further the cause of equity, justice, and selfless service in my country, the African continent, and globally. I stand unafraid to identify and question anyone engaging in behavior that contributes to inequity, injustice, including corruption, the protection of privilege. I also accept the well-meaning and respectful critique of others to ensure I maintain my commitment to justice and equity despite temptation to do otherwise. I pledge myself to the service of others regardless of their background, and do all in my power to be a true leader of Africa and the world. And this is not just words that we say, but they are values, ethics, and the core part of what we are building as the Leaders of Africa that we expect the fellows, alumni, and everybody that is part of this community to stand by. I will hand it over to Peter.
Yeah, indeed. And when it comes to data, we know that right next to data is the importance of the use of data, the cultivation of that data, first of all, ethically, but also the use of that data for ethical and positive purposes. So whatever we do in the data space, in the research space, we always have to have that underpinning of ethics involved in our work. And the Institute places a big emphasis on that, such that the pledge is embraced by not only the scholars of the programs, but also the faculty, the staff, and the administration of the Leaders of Africa Institute. Now, turning into our last theme of today, which is the application process, which I know that some of you are now asking about in the chat. So let's talk about that. The first aspect of it is that part of the application process, as part of it, is the element of assigning impact scholarships. Because a program like this is highly in-depth and lasts over a long period of time, the tuition can be on the high side. And so one of the things that the Institute does to ensure that the programs here at the Institute, including data and design, are accessible to others is we provide every accepted scholar as part of this program an impact scholarship that covers almost all of the costs of the tuition for the program. There is no separate application for the scholarship. It is reviewed at the same time as every application. And again, every scholar that received acceptance to the Data Plus Design for Development program receives an impact scholarship. The actual fee for the program, thereabouts, that each participant is required to pay that is not covered is somewhere in the $250 area. And again, we wanted to ensure that these programs are easily accessible, so we work with our development partners and other relationships that we have to be able to make that tuition affordable to those that are accepted to the program. And again, you don't need to independently apply for the scholarship. It is considered at the same time as your application. One of the important things to mention is that even if you do not receive acceptance to the Data Plus Design for Development program in this cycle, one of the critical things to mention and to announce is that if we notice that your application is of high quality, but unfortunately we will not have a place for you in this upcoming year's cohort, you will likely be assigned to one of the workshops or short courses that are involving data and data visualization. And for those programs, those ones are fully funded. So they may last a day or two, and they're an opportunity for us at the Institute to encourage those who may have been very close to getting into the year's cohort, but to encourage them to build their skills such that in the next intake of the Data Plus Design for Development program, they'll be fully prepared to take on the task of the program as a full scholar here at the Leaders of Africa Institute. And the reason why I mention this is it should be a big encouragement for you to apply, because many of us, when we think about competitive application processes, and many of you have applied in several of these different opportunities that involve competitive applications, you may be thinking to yourselves about your chances of success in that process. I want to encourage you to apply, because if you do save and share that high quality application, there is a high possibility and probability that you'll at least be part of one of these fully funded short programs here at the Institute. And of course, hopefully the full Data Plus Design for Development program as a data and design scholar. In terms of the application process, one of the key things to emphasize here is the applications are due on January 23rd. So there are a number of weeks, and there will be one other information session, the same material covered as today, in the early part of January. And the applications will be due a short few weeks after that, on Friday, January 23rd. As part of the application, it is a fairly straightforward process. It begins with contact information, sharing your basic information. Then it moves on to the CV or resume for that. So you'll be sharing your updated CV. So please make sure your CV or resume fully explains your educational background as well as your career trajectory is clearly articulated in that document. So you will upload that document in PDF form. And then after that, you will fill out the statement of interest. The statement of interest is very critical to the admissions committee making its decision because it's an opportunity for you to explain to us, why this program is relevant to you and your career trajectory, and also tell your story and your motivations behind your work. Here at the Institute, we want to have scholars who don't just care about learning new skills, but also want to use those skills for positive outcomes and social impact. So we want you to tell that story of yourself and how you hope to use these skills. In addition to that, we want to know a little bit more about how this program in particular is going to help you achieve some of your goals. And the beauty of these information session and your attendance here today is that it allows you the opportunity to really understand the program very well to help you tailor those statements. And then finally, there are a few supplementary questions at the very end of the application that will be a part of the application, and then you will submit it. And upon submission, you'll receive an email that shows that your application has been received and be a receipt of some of your responses in that email from the application so that you know that everything has been received here. Now, some of you have mentioned in the chat that you've already applied to the program, and some of you may be thinking, well, I think I need to write a better application after hearing this information session. That is perfectly okay. You are allowed to submit another application. The admissions committee will only review the most recent application that you submit. So if you've already submitted an application, you can feel free to revise it by resubmitting a full new application, and the admissions committee and the technical team will remove your older application, and only your most recent application will be reviewed. I know that's a question that we oftentimes get in terms of that. In terms of the statement of interest, there are no guidelines about font size or anything of that nature because it's inputted into a form. So I'm going to take you through that. This is the program page right here. Right here is the program page. I'll place it in the chat as well. And what you will see here is there is a link to the application portal here, as well as the official program guide. So other information about the program can be downloaded here in PDF form. Here's the application portal here. Here are some of the examples of the showcase items. Here's the important dates, of course, the due date, January 23rd, the program dates, and the notification date is likely to be around the middle part of February, thereabouts, from the admissions committee that does their work and reviews. And then we can see here, there's also the application portal right here. So right here is the application portal. I'll pull it up so you get to see what it looks like. So it looks like this. You go into next, and then you start to fill out your information. It will not allow you to kind of move around the application form until you insert various pieces of information to ensure that you've missed no questions on the application. So this is what it looks like. The supplementary questions maybe take you 2 minutes to answer. They're just about your ability to connect with the program and various other sort of background details about you. They're just simply multiple choice questions, and they take just a couple of seconds at the very end of your application. The core of your application is right here, the CV, upload, and the statement of interest. And my advice for that statement of interest is that you write and share your own words. Now, some of us may use AI to edit the things that we do, but I will tell you from the admissions committee standpoint, and the feedback that I have heard from the admissions committee is that many people are using AI to write their entire statement. And the problem with that is AI does not have the character and voice that you have. So it sounds quite robotic in nature and doesn't allow you all the time to sort of stand out from the crowd. And so I invite you to, use AI to the extent that it helps you with editing and grammar and other things, but ensure that your important voice comes through on your application. And that's one of my big pieces of advice as you think about this. And I will say the statement of interest is the sort of the key piece that is looked at, as well as your background. Now, some of you have asked about eligibility, and I think that is a good question. The eligibility, it is open in terms of geographical reach. You can apply from any country around the world, although as you will know, about 90% or 95% of our scholars in our programs are based on the African continent. We also here at the Institute have a priority of emphasizing the international elements of our programs. You could see Bijou joining us from Ghana, and then Christine joining from Kenya. Our scholars in each given cohort represent roughly about 20 countries amongst those who are in the cohort. And that's what we like, because that allows us for transnational and international sharing. So there's no geographical restrictions. It is open. In addition to that, there are no age or other restrictions regarding degrees. And the reason why is that we believe that the admissions committee can make the best determination on the basis of your application, what is the best fit for you. For some of you, that will be, success in the application process and being a scholar as part of the Data plus Design for Development program. For others of you that are in the early stages, then there may be other opportunities, such as those short workshops that the Institute offers for those that apply that are fully funded, that may be seen as a more appropriate outcome for you. Generally speaking, those that are successful in the project have finished their undergraduate degree at bare minimum, and many of them, including Bijou and Christine, are masters, have master's levels and PhDs as well. And so you'll notice in a cohort we have professors, as alongside PhD candidates and master's holders as well. And that's one of the benefits of our program, is also that cross-generational learning that comes in that setting where we have multi-aged classrooms as part of our cohort. So hopefully that answered your eligibility, which is to say it's fairly open. The admissions committee has been able to make those determinations about what is the best fit for you, given what you've shared. So if there are any other questions here, feel free to share those at the chat. We'd love to answer those now. And as you're asking your final questions, I'll encourage you to connect with the Leaders of Africa. The Leaders of Africa is also on a variety of different platforms, and there are a lot of open events and other things to attend in addition to the programs here at the Institute, including today's event, which is open for all of us to join. So I encourage you to join the WhatsApp channel or one of the WhatsApp groups, or get in touch on LinkedIn or connect there as well. Those links are shared. I'm seeing if there are any more questions here to mention. I think we've hit on all of the questions here that have been shared. So feel free to share those questions in the chat. We'll answer in text space. But we've come to the end of our session today. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Henry to say some concluding remarks, as well as Ms. Eva, as we conclude today's Data plus Design for Development information and workshop session.
Thanks, Peter. I think my words will be of encouragement to whoever is interested. Don't cut your own self short. Just put in the application, do your best, and even if you don't make it to the next cohort, there's another cohort, and you can be also organizing some boot camps, like a day or two, that you can also join and still have a good feel of what the program entails. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful encouragement. Miss Eva?
Hi, everyone. It was so great being part of the workshop, and we encourage you to put in the application, as Henry has already indicated. This is an amazing opportunity for you to take your data skills to the next level, and also your data storytelling. So we look forward to seeing you, and also being part of this cohort is really a blessing, because you get to interact with people from different areas, different research areas, and also tap from their knowledge from what people are doing across the continent in terms of like some of the impactful work. So we hope to see you, and also once again, thank you so much for joining, and looking forward to seeing you as being part of the Leaders of Africa Data Plus Design Program for Development.
Absolutely. And I just want to echo that encouragement to apply. Oftentimes we think that we're not going to make it, so we don't give it that chance. And as Mr. Henry has accentuated here, there are other opportunities and placements that are part of this broader application process for this program. And so on that theme, we look forward to getting to know you as part of the application process, our team here at the Institute. And we also look forward to getting to know and to continue to collaborate with you and see you at other events that we host here at the Leaders of Africa Institute. And so with that, I want to thank you all for joining this Data Plus Design for Development Program information and workshop session. We hope to see you around and see you soon. Take care and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.